Are you tired of failing at saving humanity from themselves? Tired of always watching people burn up in the carbon-laden atmosphere? Well, I've got news for you. Well, now you can give up. With the Black Angel Project, humanity is doomed. But it's okay. We're sending our DNA deep into space where we can do all the good things we always wanted to do.
So this is the Black Angel right here, this ship. And we're zoomed in here on this main board. And on the main board, we're going to do many of our actions. We're playing as AI, or like robotics, that are running this ship. We're trying to deliver DNA to another planet in order to keep humanity going. But humans are dead. They've been dead for a while. The robots are still around, but they are benevolent robots who wanna like, you know, continue the human species on somewhere else, or we told them to do that. So, and they're still serving us. So that's what we're doing in this game. And here's where we store our robots that have been built, but we don't quite have them activated. They're still charging their batteries or something. Then we have our player areas here where our die set. You get die for each of your robots and your work situations there. So the robots are going to go from here to these work areas here, workstations. So basically, that's going to be how we're going to get more die available for us to use, which don't get too excited because just having die available for you to use, they can get definitely used by other people and stolen. So it happens. We have 6 spots on the board where we can do things. 3 of the spots are very similar. So I'm just going to mention those real quick. Let's take a look here. The 1, the 5, and the 3 space are all about putting cards down on the sideboard that we haven't even looked at yet. The even numbered spaces are about programming our AI, if we go here, about removing damage and debris from the ship, or about fighting the Ravengers, which the Ravengers are these nasty, they're like cyborgs too, I think. In the lore, they were created by one of the alien species. Then they turned on them, and so they've gotten out of control. But we're trying to help combat them with this other civilization to make them not kill stuff or whatever. These spots here store Ravenger cards, so we can have Ravenger cards start showing up throughout the ship as we play the game, and they will. They're gonna handicap our ship in some way. So when this goes down, it's gonna damage. And then this is going to show us that we have to lock out a robot when we go to that position. And actually, yeah, so if we look at that, it did actually work out that was a 1 card. And that was just kind of a lucky chance. But then this is also a 1 card as well. So this would go on top of it. Now there'd be 2 Ravengers there. And so this is saying that I'd have to discard a card to go there. I believe is what that symbol means. And like we'd keep going through the game. And whenever Ravenger cards have to pop up, they would go back on the board. So this one, though, says a 5. So this would go in the 5 spot clear up here. And that's just kind of how the game unfolds, is we're balancing these Ravenger cards and the damage they generate with what we can do on the ship. Now, these spots here, I don't have the damage cubes out just yet, but these spots here, when we put a Ravenger card out, it shows us, it reminds us, we put the card down, then we also put a damage cube down there. And so those damage cubes, what's going to happen is the first one's kind of a freebie. The second one takes a pip off our die when we go to that action spot. And then from there on out, they start locking these die up out here. So the debris and the Ravenger cards are kind of getting in the way of us being able to advance our robots, advance our things that we want to do in this game. But at the same time, they aren't the end of the world because they give us a benefit. So that debris, for example, when we plug that into our AI, when we start looking at our player boards, is going to be something that can activate different parts of what we want to do with our personal stations here. And the Ravenger cards activate that AI, like whole rows of AI, like they're wild cards almost. So they're both really beneficial to take off the board, even though they're kind of a nuisance at the same time. But that's the main board. One last area that we would take a look at too is over here on the side. We're gonna have some different kinds of little AI chips come out, and then you're able to take those with this spot here. There's also these advanced AI, which are going to be more about point generation than they are about improving our gameplay. So it's balancing those two as well onto our AI boards. When we get to them, you'll understand that as well. So we'll go ahead and just drop down to that now, I guess. This is our player board. The player board is going to be where our AI subroutines come to live. We're also going to store our debris and our resources and our ships up here too. And what's going to happen is we're going to program our AIs to have more subroutines in them. So we can see there's 3 different colors of subroutines, and those are important to understand that they do different things kind of, but they also activate with different colored cards. So one thing worth noting too, and when I'm programming my AI, I'm going to consider this, is that a yellow card would activate all the yellow tiles in a row or a column. So it would make sense to put the yellows with the yellows to a degree. So as I'm getting more tiles, I might load up the yellows on the top here. And as I do get a new technology, it comes into the edge here and it bumps the other ones over. Once I get to the point where I would kick something off, they kick off from here and I would lose that subroutine. So some of these initial first player startup tiles you get are pretty powerful. So you want to try and use them pretty early. And again, this one I would probably put on here. I might put an advanced tile on even this early. And advanced tiles have to go in that spot there in the very bottom. But they get kicked off and they score us points at the end of the game. Or they score points out in the middle, but they score a little better at the end of the game because they can come over here. Every card that we would tuck under the edge of our board would make those tiles be able to score more points. So we want to get those kicked off, but they also will score us. So the black tile scores points during the game, or not during the game, at the end of the game. But at any rate, yeah, it's just a neat little like slider puzzle kind of thing, where we're going to keep pushing these tiles on our turns and getting them to activate. So this would be a full subroutine, and if I had a green card, I could tuck it underneath here. All those would fire. I would get all those. And if I had a yellow card here, these would all fire as well. If I had a yellow card and tucked it here, I would only get this one yellow top routine. With this one, I would get the blue subroutines. This one does not do anything for me because it's an in-game scoring tile. And then another way that we can think about scoring too is these Ravager cards that we're collecting. If I tuck them in, they're gonna activate every card, every subroutine. They're kind of a wild, so it might make more sense for me to stick it there because it's gonna activate all those subroutines. And this is going to eventually get clogged up. I can't stack cards on top of each other. I can only put one per slot. So one thing I'm going to want to do is probably reset this board at some point by taking a B action. And when I take the B action, it's going to clear these all out so I can use them again. So another thing too is that these little debris spots here, I'm playing on the basic side. Those little debris spots there would give me a one-time benefit if I could get that by putting a debris on there. And I would get a ship from that. So those clear off when I do the B action as well. So the debris, when I pull it off of there, I can put it onto the little subboard here, and then we go up into my debris area there to be used later. To flip die over is another thing that we can do with those as well. So this is where a lot of our customized player board kind of stuff comes from, and it's programming that we've done ourselves. So it's kind of neat. It's almost like you're establishing like a colony, and then there's like a greater world where you interact with people. It's just a neat little way to have this little board work. It's simple, but it really enriches the game, adds a lot to it. At the end of the game then, these black tiles that kicked off are going to be worth 4 points, up to 4 points apiece. But then also if I've tucked cards underneath there at the end of the game, get some cards tucked there, I can add the value up to, see how it says 4 and then +2 for tucked cards. So if I get 3 cards tucked underneath there, I could make those up to a value of 10. 4 + 2 + 2 + 2. So up to 10 points. Not automatically worth 10 points, but could be worth 10 points. If I, this one for example says blue tiles in there are worth 2 points apiece. Well, if I got a bunch of those on there, right now I'm at 6 points. Let's say I got another one on there. Now I'm at 8. Well, if I didn't have those cards tucked underneath there, I'm only going to score 4 points off. So overall, the components in this game, I would give a pretty high rating. Amongst those really good components include these little ships here. We had our little robots we saw earlier, but these ships have robots that snap into them. It doesn't really snap, but they slide in with a good amount of friction, and they're going to stay put in there. And they're going to zip around the galaxy. Before we get to that galaxy board, though, I want to mention, too, this is the debris where we've recovered things that have been damaged on the Black Angel. And then also, this is that's the pile of resources. So resources are basically useful in using other people's die, but they're also just a way to get points kind of as well. But that's the third type of resource. They're all nicely made, really high-end components in this game. Really have enjoyed playing with this game because of those high-end components. The graphic design, again, is really good too. Once you get a pretty good understanding of the iconography, it's not too bad, really. So this is the sideboard where the Black Angel is hanging out at. The Black Angel is traveling through space, and we're simulating that by taking these little modular bits of board and putting it in front of the Black Angel as we move forward, taking it, flipping it over, and then putting it in front of it. But this is also where a lot of the game happens at, because what we see here is a simulated, we left the Black Angel, we came out into space, and then there was this yellow planet here. And so we are establishing like trade with them, or we're building a colony to collaborate with them. And there's a couple kinds of cards like this. So let's go ahead and just take a really close look at that one there. So with this card in particular, we're going to take a just real nice close look at this. The robot would be on here because he indicates that the white player was the one that established this colony or established this trade or whatever you want to think of it as. And then there's a couple spots for ships there. This one, though, is really not kind of more of a worker placement spot. It's more of a when this gets kicked off the board. So remember that mechanic of we take that back module off. When this gets kicked off and it falls out of space, then we're going to have primary and secondary rewards. So the primary and secondary rewards are going to trigger at that point, and the players who were there to be a part of that are going to get the rewards from this card. So these cards kind of go all over this place, and they allow like a secondary, like kind of worker placement spot there. So an example of a card that would be more useful during the game and not just when it kicks off the board would be something like this. Now this would be an example of a placement on the board where we would use more like a worker placement space. This would be established by the pink. The pink player would get 2 points by establishing this card there. This then says, on the bottom half, it says, per activation, get a ship and a resource. So going there is going to be a really powerful thing for one, the person who established it gets a 1 power activation whenever someone visits there. So the pink player, whenever another player is going to visit there, is going to get a pair of those resources. But then if you went with a higher powered die, you could get multiple activations from being there. So if you went and visited, let's say the white player comes and visits this station and spends a couple activations there, a 2 power activation, they'd get 2 of those resources. So it's the addition of like this worker placement kind of sub board on there. That's another use for these cards. So instead of just firing them into your AI and getting those resources from your subroutines, you can also establish these as like colonies in space, and that's going to allow you to have more worker placement spaces. This right here is worth mentioning too. That's just showing that when we put this card out and established it as a colony, we would have put out a yellow and a bluish colored AI into the market, and that's how we advance the market is with these cards as well. So I think now we have a pretty good overview of the components of the game. Let's get into what we do on our turns. So on your turn, you do one of 2 types of turns. You either do a reset turn, or you do some work with these die type turn. And I'm going to go ahead and start with a reset turn. Let's just say that I'm out of die. So I would take my die for the workers that I have in the active stations there, and I'd roll these die. And then I can use a resource to lock one of my die. So this 3 here, I don't want anyone else to use it, so I'd use that to lock that die. And I would do that by paying one of the diamond looking type resources. Then these would go into my general supply. The reason why that matters is because I can use anyone's die. So I could have rolled there, that would have been fine. And if I wanted to reset my cards and things, that's a perfectly okay thing to do. But I had these die over here available to use as well. So I could have paid the pink player to use this die or one of their other die. So You can always use other people's die by paying that diamond type resource. That diamond type resource also lets you lock a die. But whenever I roll those die, I'm going to advance the Black Angel over on that sideboard and do that whole bit of upkeep. But then I'm also going to reset my cards on my player board, which is a really nice way to say, hey, I've got some really powerful subroutines. I need to use those again, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then once we have die to use, then that's where we're going to do the A phase, or the main phase of the game. And that's where we're going to tuck one of those cards under our player board. Optionally, we don't have to do that, but it really does make sense to do that because you're going to get a nice chunk of stuff from doing that. And then you're going to take one of your die and use it as a worker and do like worker placement with the die. So the amount of pips on the die really does matter because it's how many activations you're going to get. So how powerful it is as currency to buy more subroutines for AI, but also for how many activations you get when you go to a worker placement spot in space. It also is going to have to do with like how many debris you could pull off. So the higher the pips, the better. It looks like I did a really poor job rolling here, but these die don't go up to 6. They go up to 3. So there's 0, 1, 2, 3 that are possible outcomes on these die. So that is something to consider. The other piece too here to consider is that I do have this die locked up. And so it may be tempting for me to want to use that 3, but I have that one safely secured. These two I don't, and someone else could come in and use them. And so I really don't want to let other people use those die. So if those die were still sitting out there on my turn, I'd probably use this too. And now I have to match the color into the placement. I can't put this green die in the yellow area. I have to use one of the green spots to do this. And I would probably, I don't know. There's a bunch of Ravager cards out, so I might place this over here in the Ravager area and take a couple of these Ravager cards off. And now I've got these available to me to use as like wild cards to fire subroutines. This yellow die here, I might have thought, you know what, I want to keep this one and use it to get some more AI subroutines to put in my player area. Or I might have said, you know what, I want to go establish a yellow colony out on the sideboard there. And that would let me get 3 movement and be more powerful in doing that than a 1 would have. So that's basically what you're going to do when you spend your die. You're going to wrap up your turn by drawing a card of the color of the die that you used. So if I did do a yellow die, I would draw a yellow card at the end of my turn. So that's basically the game. What's going to happen though is we're going to continue doing this. Every time that someone rolls the die, we're going to advance the Black Angel. Once the Black Angel comes to once the initial starting tile area, row of tiles, would back off the board, we're going to put out our destination, and this is going to give us about 3 final times where people will roll the die. I'm going to give you some more thoughts now. Let's go back in the studio and just establish some final thoughts on this game.
So what do I think of Black Angel? That's the big question here. I'm really still trying to wrap my head around this game on some levels. There's some things in this game that I really love. I really, really love some parts of this game. And there's other parts of it where I go, is that how it has to be? Can we fix that somehow? Is that something that, as I get more familiar with the rules, I'm going to be better with? It's going to become more streamlined and fluid. But overall, oh man, well, let's just get right into it, I guess. The highlights of this game, and kind of a couple maybe lowlights, are the components in the art are really good in this game. Ian O'Toole does a great job, delivers in this one as well. He's my favorite board game artist, so I'm biased, but he does such a good job of integrating design into art. And this game's no exception. There's all this stuff woven together that's just perfect. I mean, just perfect. It's a masterpiece. I like the iconography. The iconography, if you understand a Vidal Lacerda Eagle Griffin game, you're going to probably understand the iconography in this game because they really are similar. This whole game really, to me, kind of feels like the box size, everything kind of feels like an Eagle Griffin Vidal Lacerda game. And even the gameplay is Lacerda-like in some ways. That this action impacts this action. It's just, and that's a high compliment. Vidal Lacerda's games are like 2 or 3 of my top 10. So, really, really rock solid in that regard. The theme on this game is really fun, really cool. I like that they went ahead and made this like a space theme, or like even a unique kind of space theme, not just 4X kind of space thing. It's like, man, it's kind of cool. We're playing as these AI. It's a little weird to wrap your head around. It's a little doom and gloomish and feels bad, but I mean, just kind of a thought that it could happen. You know, that it could be sentient AI that eventually someday has to make decisions to preserve its heritage. It's humans that created it, maybe. So kind of a cool theme. The player interaction in this game for a Euro game is really high. So you're using each other's spaces, you're using each other's die. You're balancing these different things out. Some people are trying to, if you let things go, other people are going to pick up the slack on getting debris in those cards because it's so rewarding. But it's just really neat how you use each other's resources, you use each other's space stations or whatever you want to call those card areas, and then everyone benefits. So it's strange. It's like it's symbiotic for sure that you all have these relationships that are helpful to everyone. But then beyond that, it's like I don't know. It's just who's getting helped the most is really how you win this game. So a very, very cool game in that regard for sure. The interaction just so cool. The turns on this game are super rich. So when it comes around to your turn and you're plugging a card in there and getting this subroutine to run and you're getting all this stuff, then you're doing a full turn of activating a die. Sometimes that means doing something on a sideboard. All these things are really cool. And when it comes around to your turn, you feel like you've done a lot on your turn. You feel like you've planned quite a bit and you've done quite a bit on a turn. And I like that feeling that I'm making a big leap towards the end objective of this game. I like that a lot, that the turns are big and rich. That's just really cool. However, because of that, if you're playing with 4 players, I think this one maxes out maybe even 5. No, 4. It's a 4. At 4 players, this game has some serious downtime in it. And I mean, you kind of are trying to pay attention to what people are doing on that sideboard where you might be able to use things. You kind of want to see what die they're using, but it's like it doesn't always keep you 100% engaged. Even though what they're doing is going to interact with your stuff, there's a few enough of those things that happen, and there's some solo, solitaire kind of things happening as well, that I feel like the downtime, because these turns are so big and so rich, can be kind of a lot with the max player count. And so with that, we also have an inconsistent play time. So I think with 4 players, we're not going to hit anywhere near what the box says. I'm thinking we're going to be close to 3 hours on a 4-player game, especially if you have anybody that's a little bit AP prone. So the play times are pretty inconsistent. I found that a 2-player game is much, much quicker. I mean, obviously, than a 4-player game. So I just think that it's just, even though it's rolling the die activates the ships and stuff, I feel like the more there is going on there, the more people have to think about how they're interacting with the board, and the just longer it takes, and then the longer it feels too, because you have all that downtime in there. So I mean, I'm not totally slamming this game for this, but the downtime is something to consider. I think at 3, this is kind of hitting its sweet spot, to be honest. So I would play this at 4, but I would know that I'm going to have some downtime in this game. So where do I put this game at with a final rating? Is this a game that we're going to be paying attention to for a while? Is this something that's worth it's kind of an expensive game. Is it worth the investment to buy it? I did buy this one with my own money. I mean, I got this one at Gen Con, and am I disappointed? Do I feel pretty good about it? Well, let's break down some ratings here with some numbers. The accessibility of this game, it is a heavy game. This game's not for the weary. It's not for the feeble. It's not for the new gamer. So this is something that's going to be, if you've had someone that's played Troyes, I think that, again, the comparisons are always there, but that whole using the die thing is definitely going to be, oh, okay. And then where your robots are at in the break room or on your player board reminds me of Troyes as well. It's like in the corridor. I don't remember exactly what they call it, but in Troyes you have that as well. And then you add a few other things to it. So I think that having background knowledge of other heavier games or other Euro games is really almost essential in this game, that you have to really have that, or else you're not going to enjoy playing this game. It's going to be a lot for you to digest. It's going to be overwhelming, and you're not going to enjoy playing with those people too. So pick a select group of this, probably 2 other people. Play it at 3 players, and then play with people who know how to play heavy games and aren't AP prone. And I think you'll have a good time. The theme, I think everybody can enjoy this theme. It's a little dark that humans are gone, but it's something worth thinking about, I think we're going to see more of these games. As people become more and more concerned about global warming and trying to make games that are art and games that are learning, we're going to see more of these solve the water table, get the pollution out of the water type games, or conserve energy games or things like that. So I think the theme on this is cool, and it does serve a poignant reminder that we can't take for granted that we're going to be here forever. The replayability in this game and the fun in this game, I'm giving both a 4.5. And I think it's because the replayability is really high because those cards allow you to do different things on it. Plus the whole game, its whole self, you can't ever play all the arenas of this game. All those little chits coming out and being on that board too, the way you program them, I mean, there's some repetition in there, but I mean, the number of actions that you have and everything are limited, but just the order they come out and what's the most beneficial and the way how you play the other players and just the way how the cards can go on that other board, and it's just unique and random most of the time. I think all of those things really add to a really high replayability. Plus all of that thinking and designing of your system, of your AI, I think that really does contribute to the fun of this game as well. So I give those both a very strong 4.5 out of 5. I don't know that an expansion is going to help this game. I don't think it would. I think there's a lot there. I think what might help it for me on replayability and fun even is going to be more plays, which sounds weird that the replayability might go up with more plays, but I think it might, because I think that I'm going to see there's more game there on this. Every time I play it, there's a little more game that comes to me. So, I don't know. 4.5 out of 5 on both those. The design and the art I already raved about. It's a 5 out of 5. Love it. Absolutely love it. So, where does that lay me out for my final rating on this game? Well, it's going to put it at a 4.5 out of 5. So that's a very much Board Game Mechanics accepted rating. A 5 out of 5 is a game we think 90% of people who board game would enjoy playing or enjoy having in their collection. This one's a 4.5, so it's going to be between about that like 75 to 90%. I think this is a game that if you're a heavy gamer, this is a, like really put it in your collection kind of thing, and I think that you wouldn't be upset you own it. I think if you aren't as necessarily a heavy gamer, you like medium weight, medium heavy games, this is something to try and play. I really do think it's something to try and play. And I think that you might surprise you. I think the gameplay on it is really elegant. It's one of the most elegant games I've ever played that's a space game. It's just a really neat game. And I think that most people should get a chance to play this one and give it a shot for sure. But I would say a lot of people are going to own this game and a lot of people are going to enjoy owning this game. So this is one to keep an eye on, and that's what I have for this. Let's watch this one. I think this one I'm going to see in the top 100. I think that inside of Essen 2020, so I'm giving myself a year here, we're going to see Black Angel in the top 100 on Board Game Geek. I just think it's that good of a game. It's just really well done. If not top 100, top 200, it's going to be very high. So I think this is one to watch. I think it's going to have broad appeal. I think it's just one that people, when they're playing it, sometimes will go, I don't know. But then everyone I played this with, a week later, it's going, I'd play Black Angel again. Or even messaged me on social media and says, hey man, we got to get together and play Black Angel, because it really is a thinking game and it leaves you wanting more. So I think for those reasons and some more, I'm going to go ahead and suggest this one, and I really do enjoy this one. So that's about it, guys. I've been Joel with the Board Game Mechanics. Maybe if you're here because you're a sub, thank you so much. If you're not subbed and you like what we do, check it out. You're going to see some tiles come up here, and like a little round tile is going to let you sub. And then you're going to have a couple other video things pop up. One's a video that YouTube special selected for you that they thought you'd like from our channel. The other one's going to be my own personal playlist of my videos. I've got maybe 60 of them on there now. So been working hard to get more videos up there. Most of them are for heavier games like this one. So if you're new to us, man, welcome. The other big thing too is we have a podcast. So the link is in the description down below. If you like to listen to podcasts or have a commute, you can hear me. I turn up the weirdness on that one. I turn up the wackiness on that one a little bit. And we have some good interaction with each other. So my little sketch at the beginning here, like stuff like that, goofy little stuff, that's really, 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 really present in the podcast. So we try and have a lot of fun with it. So maybe check that out as well. But anyway, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you made it to this point of the video, you must have autoplay on or something, or you really are captivated. So either way, I'm happy you watched the whole video. So thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate you guys. And I appreciate you guys who are returning subs and stuff. You guys have really made our channel blossom and grow this year. Really appreciate it. We're trying our best to make things better all the time for you guys, to just reward your patience and your awesomeness. So I've been Joel with the Board Game Mechanics, and keep gaming.